Wait, go. How much wealth would be produced in Australia if all the people who work for wages in order to make a living didn't go to work for the months of April and May? Zero, right? That's because we, we are the people who are producing the wealth. Now, it's said that possession is 9/10 of the law, but I'm here to tell you that possession of wealth is 9/10 of politics. And the people who actually end up having most of the wealth are the upper 10%. You can find this out by looking at the annual report that's put out by a big Swiss bank called Credit Suisse. It comes out, you can Google it, you can find out that essentially on a global level, the top 10% of the population own 80% of the wealth that the other 90% are producing. And the other 90% are getting their wages. Okay, so that's the way the wage system works. But in various countries, the distribution of wealth can be jigged in various ways through the intervention of people who are producing the wealth, trying to get some of it back, and that's called the social wage. The stuff that we get back through our public health, education, and welfare systems. The welfare system including the old age pension. The upshot of what's happened in Australia since the Gough-Whitlam era has been that there's been a transfer of more and more wealth to the big end of town. And one of the ways this has been accomplished is through the tax system. I read an ACTU report which showed that the working class had access to 75% of the GDP during the Whitlam era, and it has since gone down to 60% of the GDP. Now, the GDP being the gross domestic product, another way of measuring the wealth that we are producing. So why has that happened? Well, for one reason, it's because our social wage has been cut. Our social wage is being cut. Our social wage is being eaten into. Our social wage is the public health, education, and welfare that we used to have. Like we used to have free uni, we used to have free medical care, but now we have this budget crisis. And the budget crisis is based on the fact that there's actually not enough revenue flowing into the government. And that's because the big end of town has had their taxes cut. You can see this if you look historically during the 80s when all this stuff about Reagan and Thatcher was popular. People were buying into trickle-down economics and the idea that if we gave more to the big end of town, that it would all trickle down to the rest of us and we would have a better life. But what happened as a consequence of people buying into that is that the company tax was cut from 49% to 39% in 1988. That was when Hawke was in power. He bought into it, and then of course Howard was an advocate of this trickle-down theory. So he cut it down to 30% when he was Prime Minister, and then now it's the case that Tony Abbott and the Liberals want to cut it down to 28.5% as of July. So that blew a massive hole in the budget in the 80s and through the 90s and through up to the 2000s. And then in 2005, Howard made another cut to the inflow of revenue into the government, and that was an income tax cut. Now, the income tax is a progressive tax. And it was true to form, though. It's conservative politics. They don't like progressive taxes. They like the regressive taxes, where regressive taxes where everybody pays the same tax, the same percentage, no matter what their income is, no matter how much wealth they have. That's why they love the GST. Remember Howard said he wasn't going to impose it before he was elected, and then after he was elected, with the help of the Democrats, he got the GST passed. And the GST just adds 10% to anything that you buy, anything but fresh food. Now, what the LNP is going to argue this year, and conservative pundits and people who are still buying into this trickle-down theory of economics in the media, they're going to say that the only rational thing we can do is widen the GST to cover fresh food, and also raise the GST to 12.5% or even 15%. I've heard some pundits say 15% is what we should do. This is the real and rational thing we should do. And what our response should be, because we understand that politics, 9/10 of politics, is about the possession of wealth. We should say, no, we're producing the wealth, and we're actually getting less of it back now. Since the Whitlam era, we got a 15% cut in our cut of the GDP. We should say, well, no, don't raise the GST. And in fact, abolish it and tax the companies like they were in 1986. Put it up to 49% on the companies, and stop giving the mining capitalists $4.5 billion a year in tax concessions, and rescind the 2005 income tax cut, which most of the benefits flowed to the upper 10%. The upper 10% there got 80% of the benefits of what happened. No, 40%. They got more money back than the bottom 80% of the population. Okay, so I mean, and it blew $169 billion out of the Treasury from 2005 to 2012, and $40 billion out in 2013. And remember, 2013, that's when the deficit was $38 billion. So if they had just rescinded that income tax cut from 2005, then we would have had a budget surplus. And if we increase the company tax, or put it back to what it was in 1986 at 49%, there would be enough wealth in the budget to provide for free education, free TAFE, universal bulk billing, the whole ball of wax. So that's what it's all about, and we should send a price signal to the LNP that if they dare try to sell us this idea that we should raise and widen the GST, what we're going to do is send a price signal to them and say, the price of this is you're going to be out of office.